morning, viewers from wherever you're watching us from. You're watching QTV, the Gambia's first private TV station, and we are broadcasting live from our studios here on CRBA Avenue. My name is Alo Sise, and it's now time for your daily morning program here on QTV called This Morning Program. And I'm Alo Sise, stepping in for my colleague Ibrahim Abande. And as usual, I'm here with Jacqueline Colley. Jacqueline, good morning.
Good morning, Aliu. Good morning, our dearest viewers. Thank you very much for tuning in to QTV this morning. Yet it's a beautiful week already, Monday, the 25th of November. Thank you all very much for tuning in once again.
Thank you very much. That's Jacqueline Colley, my co-host for this morning program. And we'll be joined on the program by Mr. Malika, who will help us, go through the proverb for today, and as well looking at the major headlines on the daily newspapers. Mr. Ka, good to have you on the program.
Good morning. It's my pleasure as always to join you on the platform. So like you said, it's an early morning, another program, and yeah.
Thank you very much. Well, that's Malika, our guest, and also on the program we shall be joined by the Public Relations Officer of the Gambia Immigration Department, as we looked at recent interception of people who are suspected of being, of course, embarking on the irregular migration. We will look at that as well together with the immigration's PRO. But Mr. Kai, we'll just try to look at the proverb, which says, spend time with the wise and you will become wise.
No, of course, I think
What's your understanding
that's
of
really self-explanatory, because when you hang around with people of wisdom, you have to pinch some of their wisdom, and that can only help develop you. It cannot reduce you in any way. So I think that is very, very smart of any individual. If you are not if you are not smart, make sure you have good friends that are very smart.
Right. That is why it is very, very important to surround yourself with people that you can learn from. Important people that have wisdom, because who you surround yourself with speaks a lot about you and what you do. If you surround yourself with people that are positive, full of wisdom, people that are intelligent, people that have experience, you tend to learn so much from them that you develop yourself. It matters a lot, and it tells a lot as well.
But one will say, it's good you surround your people with wisdom, but how about also surrounding yourself around people who are willing? Someone can have the wisdom, but if the person is not willing to share, also that's something else.
Then that person doesn't have wisdom.
Yes.
Because a person of wisdom must be generous, enough. That is why they say, you hang around with them. It goes to follow with the saying that birds of the same feathers flock together. So we expect, people who are of wisdom, to be sharing people. If they are not, then they are lacking in wisdom.
Right. Sometimes, necessarily, they don't need to teach you. It's what they do and what they say. That's what you learn from. They don't necessarily need to tell you, okay, Ali, this is what you need to do to get this. Sometimes what they do and what they say, that's how you learn from them. Right.
Okay, you take what they tell you and not what they do.
Yeah, like she said, you just have to be observant to see the things that they do, and you see the end result. It's usually very positive, and it also gives you foresight as to what you need to do going ahead. So it teaches you a lot so that you can avoid danger, especially in those times, when you live in very, communal and very, native societies. You have to learn the tricks of hunting. You have to learn the tricks of, gathering fruits. You have to learn the secrets of knowing the type of animals. You have to learn about herbs. You have to learn. So these are just wisdoms that you get over generations, and that is continuous up to the modern age. So you hang around with people that, are very smart and astute, very clever, and you can benefit from it.
But Jacqueline, do you think the young people are really,
If you ask me, I think a lot of us, especially, we call it the Gen Z generation. We're definitely not living by this code. Because especially people my age, we don't tend to move with people that could influence us in a good way. Sometimes we just go with the vibe. Okay, this is what is trending. I also want to do this. But the people that you're moving with, do they move in how you were trained at home? Sometimes you have very good home training, but peer influence can make you a completely different person. That is why it's very important to associate yourself with people that you are from the same background with, people that you share, maybe religious backgrounds, because sometimes it matters a lot. And people that you share the same life aspirations and stuff. Those are the things that can make you grow. but don't associate yourself with people that you know you are totally different. You have different views of things. You know, those things really matter a lot to me personally.
Well, like I said, I mean, you're watching the QTV's This Morning program. I am Aliou Cisse, and our proverb today is spend time with the wise and you will become wise. Like I said, our guest to discuss the proverb and the newspaper headlines is Mr. Malika, who is the general manager of QTV. Mr. Khan, let's now look at the...
Well, Ali, you're just asking us questions. You didn't tell us what you think about the code.
Well, for me...
You didn't tell us.
I think I tend to share with all what you have said. I mean,
Okay.
I quite agree with all your points. I think for me, in as much as, you know, you want to grow and develop yourself, I mean, the people you surround yourself, you know, also tells a lot. I mean, if you surround yourself with people with no ambition, then, you know, it manifests. But if you surround with people with ideas, people who discuss ideas on how to develop and progress, then certainly, you know.
But that starts,
Absolutely.
that starts with the home. That's why
Exactly.
it transcends.
Yeah.
Like your grandmother,
Right.
grandparents, these are people of wisdom.
Right.
So when you hang around them, you tend to learn a lot. That's why, as the saying goes, the elderly that is sitting down can see further than you know,
someone who's
that
standing
is
on it.
standing
Yeah.
up.
Right.
That is telling you that, you know, you can learn a lot from that generation because they have seen a lot. They have traveled through certain roads and did a lot of journeys. So they would have seen the impediments, the mistakes, all these things. So they can caution you towards that so that you will become more alert and more aware when you see danger because you would have recognized it from what you have learned from your grandparents or your parents or people that are elderly within the community. So it's a school. It's an education pattern that, you know, you can enhance learning from those people.
Definitely.
Interesting. Let's now look at the, I mean, headlines on the newspapers this morning. I have the Foraya newspaper here, Mr. Carr, and it reads, I mean, road users urge government to fix depleted Sukuta Serekunda road. I know you've been using that road frequently. I mean, they are asking that the government should, you know, or the NRA should start, you know,
Definitely, there are a lot of potholes, you know, that creates chaos because you duck and dive. Sometimes it imposes a lot of, you know, inconvenience, and not to talk about accidents or even damage to your vehicles. So I think the NRA should definitely work. I mean, not just there are lots of other roads that have a lot of potholes that in between that should be, you know, filled in or at least made usable to some extent, you know.
Right. In as much as so many roads have been constructed, I think many too needs to go through rehabilitation as well.
Absolutely.
Right.
Because for me, I think it is important. It's better to rehabilitate on time than to wait until the road is out of use and you know, you need the whole project again to construct a new road. And I think, like you said, Mr. Carr, there has been a problem here. I mean, we don't do that regular, you know, rehabilitation to make sure the road is intact. We always leave the road to get to a point where all that we need now is to get millions again to construct a new road.
Exactly.
Maintenance is a big problem.
It is.
We have spoken about it over and over again, and that does not just apply to road. You can apply that across the board. Sometimes government buildings or other institutions, because they don't have a maintenance budget or continuously looking at, you know, the roads or institutions or whatever in order to maintain it, then it degenerates, it deteriorates to the extent that you have to spend double the amount, you know, that you even constructed. It becomes redundant.
Right.
But how about the quality of work as well? In as much as, you know, you do the maintenance, the quality also matters. I mean, we have seen certain roads that have undergone maintenance and rehabilitation, but
they're still bad.
a year down the line, you come back and you begin to wonder what actually happened.
Yes.
That's where the engineer's role come to advise government. That's why, you know, you have to have durability. You have to have time, lifespan. They should tell you, you're constructing this road with a guarantee of 10 years, you know, for instance.
Right.
So that durability and that guarantee has to be inbuilt in what they do. And that is where you have the people that are engineers who would advise and look at the quality, the material, the size. All these things have to be factored and looked into, because otherwise it would be money wasted.
Right.
Because, you know, if you spend cheap, you end up having something cheap. So they have to make sure that they look and assess the quality.
I know you've lived out of the country for many years. You've seen developments in all its facets. I mean, road construction, how important is drainage? Most of the roads that we have in this country, the drainage system is very poor. And during rainy season, there's always a problem. Isn't that also playing a part in the early?
Of course, Aliu, you just take at your body. If your veins are clogged, what happens? Your body seizes you eventually. And this is what happens when you have those drains not constructed, the water path is not created.
Right.
It creates a lot of floods. And attendant to it would be a lot of destruction. We have recently seen around Basse when the river banks overflowed. It caused a lot of damage and destruction. So, but now they are conscious of it. Whenever they build roads, new roads, especially secondary roads and primary roads, they make sure that they come along with drainage, because the water has to empty and it have to have a point where they have to travel. And
that's one thing I've observed as well. Even though some of these roads they have a drain, but exit, there seems to be no exit for the water. I don't know whether you have observed that as well on most of these roads.
Yeah,
right.
You know,
especially that of Churches Town.
Exactly.
Right.
You know, there's drainage, but exit for the water is always a problem.
That's where engineers have to come and look at it holistically. You don't just look at building the road surface, but there are other things that you have to factor when you build road. You look at the height of the road in terms of, and where the water would empty, you make sure you create a passage so that it can flow easily, because water have to find its way anyway. So if it doesn't, then it becomes a problem. And this is what they have experienced. I think urban planning has been a big issue, especially with population increasing, the settlements, a lot of people.
Right.
So not just this, there are a host of other things attendant that they ought to look at when they're creating settlements, or settlements exist. So government have to redraw and then redesign all these things so that, you know, it can accommodate the expansion of population.
Right.
And still on the foreign newspaper, I mean, the finance minister has just tabled the budget estimates for 2025, and you know, we have seen another 30% increment, salary increment, I mean, for government workers. I mean, I'm saying here, Dr. Ismail Cisse is saying the 30% salary increment includes only low-income earners. What do you make of this?
That's very welcoming.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, he was here last week, and he did mention that it will not be fair to increase 30% on all levels, across all levels, because I cannot be receiving 10,000 a month, and then someone is receiving 2,000 a month, and we both have equally 30% increment. It means that person is benefiting more than I am benefiting. So it's going to be according to grades.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what he mentioned.
For me, that's good, but I think they should look into minimum wage. Minimum wage would be
talking about total salary restructure.
Yes, it will take into account inflation and all these things. Because if you increase my wages, I'm getting 3,000 a month by 30%. Yes, 30% looks good, but then in terms of increment, that will definitely not mean much.
Right.
But if they look at the minimum wage, what is the minimum required in order to be having that sustenance, you look at that and see how you can pay that.
Especially when we look at the cost of living. I mean, I think
Right.
you can't minimum wage. You can, like you said, I mean, you can even say, okay, no one should receive below 15,000
Exactly,
in government.
they should have a minimum wage.
I think that that will help. But it seems the intention is there. At least we're seeing the finance minister coming up with this.
It's laudable. Anything that adds, to the, impoverished condition of the people, change it, anything, I think we should definitely welcome it and then express our appreciation for the minister and the government for doing that.
Right.
And on the Standard newspaper, I mean, Spain seizing Gambian non-biometric passports over authenticity. I mean, they said also Belgian embassy in Dakar also follows suits. What's the matter?
I'm surprised that, there are passports, that are non-biometric still in operation, because if you go to the West now, everything has to be, digitized, everything is automated in such that it avoids fraud, because if you don't have this biometric, you can easily change, the details or the photo of the person and use it. So most Western countries now will not accept that. But I think Gambia introducing the already existing, passport, they should cease printing the non-biometric passport.
Right. I totally agree, because it's been more than 2 years since this non-biometric, the biometric passports rather were introduced. So I wonder why some are still using the non-biometric.
Maybe because they're looking at the cost.
He just told me that I was surprised.
Exactly, Maybe it's the cost as well.
No,
Okay.
but this
But
is
passports
about
are meant to
fraud.
be expired every 5 years in the
Yeah.
Gambia here.
That's
And it's
true.
been maybe close to that since the biometric passports were introduced. So it's surprising that some are still using the
I think you have
non-biometric.
the immigration coming later. I think
Exactly.
you
Right.
will be in a better position to
Uh,
explain.
yeah,
but
right.
to avoid fraud and all these things that are happening,
Exactly.
you know, duplication of,
Right.
you know, your identity, I think they
Mhm.
should go into the biometric and then cease that one from operation.
Right.
Well, as we know, the president is currently on his constitutionally mandated Meet the People tour. I mean, at the moment they're in the Upper River region heading to CRR. I mean, many have hailed the initiative because it allows Gambians to interact with the president and also share their views in terms of the developments and challenges, I mean, that they face. But here we are seeing on the Standard newspaper, the National Assembly member for, of course, I mean, Badibu Suleiman Saho has condemned what he said is a $50 million is budget proposed for president's annual tour. I think maybe he's referring to the budget for next year.
I don't know, but I think it's important that this interaction occur. No matter how you see it, people can sometimes be partisan or politicize, or they may even have genuine reasons
Right.
to, you know, to raise in terms of the cost, which can be looked into. But the fact that they visit or going around the country, meeting the people and looking at their conditions, you know, with a team of ministers and experts, assessing their needs and going back to the drawing board, I think that's something that, you know, is worth the while.
But in terms
Right.
of the cost, do you think that is justifiable?
I wouldn't know. I don't know the
50 million?
entourage. I don't know the expenditure. I don't
Right.
know. It's something that they can look into, define details, and see if it's justified or not.
Yeah.
Okay. And the other one are still, I mean, like I said, the president is on tour, and then we also understand the Standards is reporting that the leader of the UDP is also embarking on a nationwide tour starting on Thursday.
That's also a constitutional right.
Yeah.
And in every country you need opposing views.
Right.
And it's important he can go also and then explain to the people what their agenda is as opposed to what the government is, either compliment or challenge or do whatever, but they are entitled to do it, and it's welcoming because we want to hear their views as well, because that is the essence of democracy. It has to
Right.
be plural, the ideas have to be there, and then they have to, it's a battle of ideas.
Exactly.
Most definitely. And I
Exactly.
guess it's a good opportunity for them to tell the people as well why they should choose them maybe come 2026. Elections are just by the corner. And time flies like that. So, yeah.
And of course, Mr. Ka, access to clean drinking water is a fundamental human rights, and
that's
then
a
fundamental human rights,
Yeah,
and then
absolutely.
government has a key role to play in this, even though government is doing well in ensuring that, you know, there's a universal access to clean drinking water.
Right.
And we're seeing on the standard that government is installing 55 boreholes before 2025.
I think that's commendable because water is essential to life.
Very essential.
Especially the water that you consume has to be clean and fit for purpose.
Right.
Otherwise, you can get a lot of diseases or other infectious things that can affect you. So I think as a right recognized internationally, it should be accessible, it should be clean, and you know it should be available at almost zero cost to the consumers, because it's as essential as air. So people have to have fresh air, good air. That is also why they monitor quality air in many countries to ensure that people breathe fresh air. So also water.
Yeah.
So if they are doing that, I think, Jacqueline, what do you say?
Yeah, and no, December is in less than 55 days or so. So if they're going to build 55 in just a month to come, I think it's laudable as well. Because
Maybe also some of the projects have been ongoing, so
ongoing.
maybe they're just at the finishing stage. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
In any case, let it be targeted. Let's go to the most rural
Exactly,
parts
yeah.
of the Gambia where
Most
this
in
is
need, yeah.
difficult.
Exactly.
Right.
People walk distances to get it, especially women in particular. They struggle a lot to ensure that there is water. Water is so important. You use it for cooking, you use it for hygiene, you use it. So absence of clean water definitely is a no-no, especially a country of this size. We can definitely provide fresh drinking water for all communities.
How I wish the people of Bundung would have gotten some of these
Exactly.
boreholes,
And
'cause they
even
need it.
Talending as well. Some
They
part of
need it.
Talending also
Yeah,
struggle.
right.
I
you know.
didn't
Because
know that.
NAWEC is not supplying enough for them. Like usually, it's always on the papers and on social media that the people of Bundung do complain they don't have drinking water. It does come, but let's say 3, 4 a.m. at night when they're supposed to be sleeping. That's the time they
There you go. There is an urban challenge. I'm sure the government,
Right.
probably listening, they will take that. I'm sure they are aware. People would have been querying and complaining as much as they're doing for the rural community. Sometimes you also look inward towards the urban and peri-urban areas and see their needs.
Last week, or I think 2 weeks ago, I mean, the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency announced that it was embarking on what it says drug destruction. I'm sure you've been following this story, but a few days later, I mean, reports emerged that there were some sort of, I mean, tampering as far as that exercise was concerned, and then the Standard is reporting that the agency is investigating the alleged tampering of drugs bound for destruction. Are you surprised?
Okay. I am, because these things have to be secured, and it involves both the drug enforcement and also the justice system, and so therefore they have to be secured in a way that they will be transported, verified, and you will need layers of protection to ensure. So there cannot be, or there should not be, tampering if those measures are put in place to ensure that it is, because these are dangerous substances. That is why they seize it. If it gets to the community, it can be very destructive. So we must not allow people that we have given the responsibility, onerous responsibility for that matter, to destroy the integrity of the institution and make us not, having doubts about them. So I hope that's not the case. I hope they will do thorough investigation to allay the fear of the public, to ensure that these things are done properly.
And are you comfortable that the agency is investigating itself, or you will have suggested for an independent panel to be set up to investigate this?
I think the National Assembly and other agencies should be involved. When it comes to investigation, it should go beyond the agency. But the agency also have a role to play, but especially those that are being accused, they must recluse, and then the others will step in. The necessary institutions are there.
Yeah, and if these things pop up, I mean, the public might not have that much trust and confidence in these agencies, because you are there to ensure that these things don't get into the community, and you have been accused of tampering with them.
And to be honest with you, in the past, some people have been questioning.
Right. I was about to mention
exactly,
that.
about this exercise. They will say,
they seize, and sometimes they themselves.
Yeah, and then some people are like, okay, stop. You tend to hear no.
Clear the doubts.
Yeah, exactly.
Show people.
Exactly. I mean, GBOS, I mean, they held the population census. I mean, we now know our population to be around 3 million people, and now they are embarking. Yes, and now they are embarking on economic census, Mr. Ka. Economic census. What do you understand?
That is just institutions looking at, because you have to match population with needs.
Okay. Right.
So the needs are, what are we going to provide? Okay. If your population have grown from 2.5 million to almost 3 million, you have to also look at the other institutions, the needs, because that's how you align the needs with the growing population. So therefore you must know the indicators, economic performances and all these things. So I think it's important, because in the country we need data. You need information that is concrete, rather than relying on assumptions. So if you have something concrete, you'll be able to know how much rice is being consumed in the country, how much potatoes, how much tomatoes. These are indicators that link to the population. So it's important the performance of these institutions. So it's important, very important.
So what would be your message to people who might not be willing to share this information, like they come to your house and they ask you, how many TVs do you have? How many toilets are here? Sometimes some people are, they are reluctant to share this information.
That's why it requires education. They need platforms like televisions, radios to sensitize people, so that people can understand, allay their fears, and assure them that this is being done for the good, the greater good of the people. So once you educate the people, the more enlightened they are, the more they are willing to participate and provide the information required. Otherwise, they become cynical, and once they are that skeptical, it will be difficult to have some information that is reliable. And the reliability of information is of the essence in terms of the end product.
Sometimes in sensitizing, so many organizations will tell you we have been sensitizing, but a lot of people still don't know. And I doubt how the level of the sensitization process that usually go through. I doubt,
And on the Point newspaper, Mr. Ka, I mean, that's Gambia Public Procurement Authority. I mean, just last week, I mean, they had an engagement with, of course, procurement officers, car dealers. I mean, this exercise was to look at, I mean, the issue of vehicle procurement in government. And according to, I mean, Ibrahim Sanyang, who is the director of procurement, that $985 million was spent on vehicle procurement from approved $4 billion. I think this was for last year, if I'm right.
Procurement.
This means we spend a lot of money on procuring vehicles.
Absolutely. I think
out of 4 billion,
yes,
948 was used for vehicle procurement.
Yeah.
I think it has to be open. Tender procurement has to be a process that has to be very transparent, and people know what the needs of the government are, who the participants are, and how you access, you know, all these things. The processes have to be clear and laid bare to the public, and then people can also be assured. It's always challenging in most third world countries, especially when it comes to procurement of goods and services from the government, because of transparency, lack of, you know, credibility. So they have to work on these things so that people can know. But the providing information to the general public, because they are public trustees, we own it. So therefore we ought to know. So they should not be hiding things, and then in the open, then people can be sure of what they're doing.
Right.
Okay. But I understand. I mean, vehicle is, you know, it's an important tool as far as, I mean, the running of government is concerned. But the rate at which we procure vehicles, Mr. Carr, from your experience, I know you live outside. I mean, you see how other governments functions in the West. I mean, do they equally need this number of vehicles just to carry out their?
That's why we have the FPAC and all these things, the National Assembly. They are the watchdog of the people to look at what is happening within our economy, what areas are priority, where are we spending our money, to at least come and talk to the people about that. Without those institutions functioning, you know, then we cannot know what the priority of government are. So therefore they ought to ensure that they are holding to account the government and telling the public these are the priority areas, this particular period, and this is what they spend, so that people can look at it and see how responsible or irresponsible they are for that matter.
Definitely.
Because many people will complain about, you know, vehicle maintenance in government. People sometimes they don't care because, I mean, they don't buy the vehicle, it's procured by the government, they don't buy fuel, so they handle the vehicle anyhow they want, and then next year, you know, you go and, you know, claim for another vehicle.
That is a public waste of, you know, resources. That is why I said that role also falls on them to ensure that, you know, wastage and all these things are curbed, so that we can invest into agriculture and other productive areas for the advancement and development of the people, because the monies that are allegedly wasted in those areas, if they were used in other aspects, you know, it could be more productive. So they ought to look at
support the private sector who are now engaging into agriculture.
Right.
Yeah, the private and public sector. But the private sector is doing well in agriculture because of efficiency, investment and discipline.
Right.
The lack of discipline is what you are talking about in terms of usage of public vehicles and all these things.
In the
so where that is absent, then there is wastage, and therefore it retards development.
Because what I've seen in the private sector, I mean, you can go to an office and you find that they have only 3 vehicles, but they manage it and they're performing well.
Right.
Yet in the public sector, you find an office with how many vehicles, each to a vehicle.
They need to take audit of all these things, and then I'm sure they will look into all these things as people. That is why we need, you know, all this dialogue, both within the state and also the opposition, so that all these things are in the public domain. Talk about it. That is the essence of pluralism in society.
Yeah.
Waste management, I often hear you complain, you know, the attitude of Gambians, I mean, in terms of waste, how we just litter around and all those things. I mean, we've seen the KMC launches another initiative to improve, I mean, waste management.
I don't want to sideline.
Jacqueline?
Yeah,
What do you made of?
I think KMC has been doing well when it comes to waste management, because usually in the previous years, it's very difficult when you, in your compounds, to like dispose of your waste. See some people dumping it outside, but within the KM, at least, that has significantly reduced, like dumping waste just anywhere and anyhow. It has reduced. But them launching another landmark initiative to improve waste management, I think is laudable. And I think other, you know, area councils as well should emulate KMC, especially my area, Brigham Area Council.
They are.
But
Oh
they are
God.
doing well. I mean,
My
we have
brother
seen
is
their-
doing well now.
exactly.
He procured some
Yeah, definitely. They
vehicles, so
procured
that-
some vehicles.
Now,
and then,
yeah.
and I think
Right. It's louder, but before, like
Yeah.
we're really suffering when it comes to waste management.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But for me, it's a social responsibility across the board.
Right.
Government have a role to play.
And
You
the-
know, the councils have a role to play. The public have a role to
exactly.
play.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's a chain of work. Anyone that fails, then the chain will break. If the people are not responsible enough to organize whatever collective, you know, dirt at the markets or areas, dump it properly. If they don't do that, the consequences are there. You'll see
Right.
the roads dirty. It doesn't matter how many times you clean it.
Right.
Yeah.
If somebody is digging a hole and somebody else is filling the hole, you will never have a hole.
No.
And this is the catch-22 situation. So we must also educate the people so that their habits of treating, you know, waste, they come to understand, because waste, especially in the urban area, is substantial.
It is.
The amount of waste, look at your household, a similar household,
Right.
the amount of waste you generate. So to manage that and process it and throw it, and I'm sure they are looking into, you know, how to process and separate waste and use it in different ways. They're having a lot of support from the EU and other
Yeah.
partners. It's important for people also to be aware. Central government have a role, the councils have a role, the people have a role.
Yeah.
So it's a tripartite situation.
It
And,
is.
and we are lucky, I mean, as a country that highly depend on agriculture. I mean, we could have used all this waste and transform into organic fertilizer rather than importing tons of fertilizer from outside.
You are right.
That's an aspect we need to invest as well.
I think some people have started doing that, but we have to do it at a scale
Yeah.
where we can separate the waste. We haven't gotten to the position where we separate. If you go to the West, I'm sure you have, you see the different bins for bottle, for
Right.
paper,
Yeah.
Right.
and for organic material.
Right.
So they're separated. But we haven't gotten there yet. So but what we have to do now is collect the waste and put it at least in one place, because cleanliness is healthiness as well.
Right.
If your environment is dirty, where you sit and sell stuff, other people buy the food stuff, get sick, it's not very healthy.
It's
So
not.
that is why I said it's our role as a people, role of government, and role of the councils as well.
Right.
Okay, and still on the point newspaper, 16 days of activism. Of course, Ndeye Rosar, who is the head of UNFPA, is highlighting the efforts, I mean, that his office is doing to combat gender-based violence in the Gambia. It's
No,
still a
absolutely,
concern. It's still prevalent.
absolutely. I think it's a shame that we're talking about violence in this day and age, especially
Right.
against women and children.
And girls.
You know, I think it's time that people become conscious to be aware that it's not the solution. It's not the solution to hurt people. It's not the solution to beat people. That's not the solution. Jaw is better than war. So have a dialogue and resolve the issues. If you cannot be together as partners, part your ways and be in peace, because violence does not help. It doesn't solve any problem.
It doesn't.
So the advocacy is important to enlighten people. It have reduced substantially, but it's still, the remnants are still there, and
Right.
sometimes it can be fatal. You can hear incidents, you know, very tragic incidents where lives can be lost or some serious impairments caused against the body of person also. So it's important they advocate, and also people become more aware, and yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think it's very important because personally, growing up, I lived in an environment where I witnessed this sexual and gender-based violence, and it was a little bit traumatizing to see. Because at some point, I was even thinking about, will I even get married if this is what marriage is all about? Like, you know, it could be very traumatizing, especially when you live in a household where you have kids around and that is going on. Like, it usually has some mental and psychological trauma on the kids. So it's very important that we advocate for gender-based violence, especially against women and girls. It's very important.
Thank you very much, Jacqueline. And Mr. Carr, I understand my colleague Usman Jatta is now on the line. He is traveling with the President's delegation on the tour. Usman, welcome to this morning program. Where are you at the moment, and what can you tell us as far as the latest updates are concerned?
Thank you so much, Ali. We are currently in Basse on standby to Janjambure. The tour has already reached its first week, and we have concluded the Upper River region, meetings in the Upper River region. Yesterday, the president ended his last meeting in Sandu Dasilabe, where he met with village, with the community with the people to discuss various things regarding their community. And at the meeting, the community members raised various issues from poor feeder roads, and equally as well, they lack nurses and doctors at their newly constructed hospital by the diaspora of their community. So these are some of the challenges that they are calling on the president to help them, because on the area of road infrastructure, you would notice that the president has already constructed, or the government has constructed a highway for them, like that is the Pasamas highway, but most of these communities are off-road. So getting access to the community, it's always a problem for them. So they are now calling on President Barrow to provide them, to improve their major feeder roads, leading to their villages, so that it could improve access, to create connectivity.
I understand as part of your tour, the president has also been visiting, some ongoing projects. Could you just update us as to what are these projects he has visited in the Upper River region so far?
Sure. The president has been visiting various project sites. Like yesterday, the president visited the Sare Sillere community, where the president launched the government, together with partners, that is like the Islamic Development Bank, launched various boreholes for them to have access to water, because most of these communities, they draw water from wells, and they spend hours drawing water from these wells, and it prevents their children from attending school because they don't have access to proper water. So with that, the government with partners decided to provide them with boreholes, and these boreholes are massive boreholes. We're talking about more than 50,000 liters of tanks there. So according to the contractor, this put the water that is available there, the tank could be filled 32 times in a day, and it's really helping them. And it's not only the people that are in the Gambia that are benefiting from it. Like in Sare Sillere, it's a border village. Even the people that are within the border, like in the other side of our neighbors, they also come to fetch water. So that is not the only thing. The president has, the government with partners also, they are providing them with livestock husbandry centers. They are empowering them. So this is really helping them to transform their communities. Equally as well, the president visited the Sare Demba Toro mega solar plant. This solar plant is funded by the United Development Fund, United Nations Development Fund, UNDP. It is supposed to supply 3 villages with electricity. As we speak, they have already distributed the electricity lines, and all they are waiting for now is to get the connection. So these are very significant projects that is hoped to boost the lives of these people. And finally, in Basse Mane Kunda and Demba Kunda, there is huge transformation that is happening when it comes to road infrastructure. For the first time, these places have already been, all they are waiting for is the tar road. Now the contractors have already laid the gravel and everything. All that is remaining now is to lay the gravel, the tar, and it's really quite impressive. And the community members are very happy, and they came out in their large numbers to thank the president for giving them such chances. Because as far as development is concerned, water, electricity, and good road infrastructure are very key. And in most cases in the Gambia, people talk about economic hardship, but to be candid, from what I have seen from my own personal analysis, there is development happening, more especially rural development in the country. And I think this is very crucial as far as the country's development trajectory is concerned, because it will help to lower the rural-urban drift, and this will enhance development within these areas. With electricity, people with skills could embark on welding, carpentry, and different forms of skills, and this would help to improve economic activities in these areas of the country.
All right, Ibrahima, we've seen in your reports this weekend that the president also took time to go to these farms where they planted they produce granules as well. Could you tell us what the visit was all about and what was, the take home?
Sure, quite interesting development there, because it could be noted that, like, since the president started his tour, the Meet the People store.
Right.
So, like the Agri Minister clarified, like it used to be the Meet the Farmer store, but now they call it the Meet the People store. But what happened is, since he started this store, like all that the people have been complaining about is the poor ground season. Now they have clarified that other seeds have made it, like other crops like coos and maize are very good, but the groundnut is very poor. So because it's too prevalent, the complaints are too much, the president decided to go on a study tour to have first-hand information to know whether this is actually true, and he was able to come to the conclusion that it is true that the groundnut season is not very good for this particular year, and this is as a result of climate change. Of recent, we have seen the country is witnessing erratic rainfall. We don't have much rainfall, and this is affecting the planting of groundnut. So they have also mentioned that, like, when they planted, most of the groundnuts got dried because of a lack of rainfall, so they dried up. So when it started to rain, the ones that survived, they started flowering automatically, and because of that, the yield was not very good for this particular year. So now the government, to help the farmers, what he did was, that is to make sure that, like, he complement their loss. He decided to maintain the price of last year's groundnut price of per ton, buying a ton for $38,000. So what the government is doing, the government is adding another extra 10,800 just to support the farmers, and this is at the loss of the government, despite the fact that this is the reality. But they just want to empower farmers, the groundnut farmers, to be specific, so that they will not feel the impact of the loss. So. But aside from that as well, the government, that is the president as well, like, has given suggestions that, like, there is a need for the farmers to be aware of climate change, because this is something that will continue. And from what he has also said, it's like the country's rainy season is moving. In previous years, by May, it will start to rain. But now you would notice that it will go up to around June, July, before it starts to rain. So this is one thing he advised farmers to be mindful of. But he promised them that his technocrats are taking note, and when they go back to Banjul, they will conduct meetings and also come for post-assessment, where they will record the names of the people that are affected, and they will be compensated for their loss.
Usman, I'm quite impressed, with the progress on the road that you said, Basemane Kunda, Demba Kunda, linking to Numuyel to Alonghari. That's a very critical road as far as, those traveling from Basse to Alonghari are concerned. But I also understand there was a press conference convened by the Minister of Information, attended by Demba Sabali, and of course, the President's advisor, Modu Sabali. What was this press conference about?
Yeah, basically the press conference was an update about the ongoing tour, because there have been a lot of rumors circulating with regards to what the president has been saying. So there was a need for these three people to come out and make some clarification. That is the Minister of Information, Dr. Ismail Assise, and the Minister of Agriculture, Dr. Demba Sabali. So he made clarification with regards to the poor groundnut season and government's intervention. Equally as well, they did mention about the issue of, like, how do I call it? The payment of, like, the salary increment of a civil servant. This popped up, like, accidentally, actually. So, but virtually, it was more of, like, clarifying issues from the Meet the People store, because it's important. And according to Dr. They will be conducting quarterly press briefings, like weekly, like to some extent, like to brief the people, the public about it. And I think it's important, because it's about the people, and there is a need need for people to know what is happening, because they're using public funds to conduct the tour. So it's important that the public knows what is happening and what is the progress of the tour. But generally, if I am to be candid to you from my analysis, I think there is huge transformation taking place in rural communities, and for the first time, that is why the president said he is the foundation of development in the country. And I think this is very crucial because if you look at countries like Senegal, they have got many presidents from Abdou Diouf to Abdoulaye Wade. All of these presidents contributed to development. And I think, from my own opinion, it is important as a country we start looking the Gambia because the Gambia is what remains. Political parties will come and go, but the Gambia is the most important thing, and it's quite impressive what is happening in our country at the moment.
And like you said, you're already in Basse. I mean, when are you moving to CRR, and what are the engagements there?
Probably in 5 hours' time, we'll be moving to the Central River region. And in the following day, like that is by Tuesday, we'll be in Mansakonko, and by Wednesday, we'll be in Kiang heading towards Kombo. So most likely by Wednesday, the president will go back to the State House. From Kiang, he will come back to the State House, but it might be late as well.
Okay.
Then in the subsequent days, by Thursday, we will take a day off, and the tour will continue in parts of Kombo. That is like in the Fonies and other parts of the country. So this is what is going to happen there. But in CRR, he's also expected to have few meetings there. We will have our night stop today at Janjambure. Yes, Janjambure. So from Janjambure, we will be moving to LRR. That is like Mansakonko.
That's my region.
Yes. So basically, yeah.
Thank you so much, Usman Jatta, my colleague there, covering the president's Meet the People tour. I mean, he's currently in Basse and they're heading to Janjambure later in the day. Thank you so much, Usman, for the brilliant work you are doing there, and stay safe. And like you said, I mean, this is quite important, Mr. Ka. I mean, the president having this engagement with people, because it also helps him to know and assess, I mean, what his government is doing, but also hear from the people directly. Because for so many people, not just, I mean, meeting the president, but having that opportunity, for some of them, maybe it's just once in a year that they meet with the president.
I think it's an opportunity to interact, and then for him to see at first hand some of the projects that they are talking about, to see how they're evolving. Also, the poor yield of the groundnut. I was going to say that the climate change fund, I think the government should be able to access it, because they've committed billions. These are the situations in which countries such as ours, when they are being affected or impacted by climate change, because most of this pollution or this is done by the developed countries, so therefore they ought to be compensated, compensating us for such kind of consequences.
But I think he can equally relate as a son of a farmer, now a president. He knows what it takes, I mean, to be a farmer. And
absolutely, and this is their livelihood. This is what they depend on. So now they have to go and access the climate change fund in order to support the farmers and subsidize or help them in terms of this kind of situations. I think.
Right. And he did mention, Usman did mention the two important points that I got was the granite and then the hospital lacking nurses and doctors. Because healthcare accessibility is very important. You cannot be in a community where you lack healthcare facilities. You see some villages, they have to travel miles before they get access to healthcare, and which is totally unacceptable. And
I think also when you looked at it, yes, for me it's one thing to have the means to have your sons and daughters willing to invest in their community, but before you start to invest in such areas, you should be sure that you can provide all what it comes with. I mean, for example, there are certain communities maybe they're not far from. For example, you live in maybe Alunghari or or Kobakonda, and there's a major hospital in Basse. For me, before you start to build a health center in Kobakunda, for example, for me, you could have invested that funds into something else. And then, because I'm sure the government will have preferred empowering the Basse hospital than to bring in nurses for a community which is just less than 2 kilometers from the main hospital. But like I say, it's a good intention from the native of that village to build that hospital, and I hope, I mean, the Minister of Health will provide nurses for them.
So complementary development efforts are always welcome, because you have to understand. But more importantly is the building of roads, access. Once you have roads, they are not long distances. So you can go to primary health centers, that are not far off. And I have seen that they're doing a lot of effort which ought to be recognized. Sometimes a lot of people politicize these things and take positions, but when they do some things that are very good, impacting the lives of the ordinary people, it must be noted and appreciated, and also give them a pat on the back to keep pushing, because they have been assigned a responsibility, given public funds. So if they are registering some of these results, it must also be acknowledged and appreciated. Where they are falling short, it must be pointed out so that they can realize and recognize that people need these services, and it's their duty and responsibility to provide it. So that is what it's all about, being critical when it's necessary and being complimentary also when it's necessary.
Right, you talked about roads as well. Ibrahima did mention that the villagers said they
Usman.
need, Usman, that's how I always miss his name. Feeder roads. These major feeder roads are very, very important. You can have a main highway, but roads that connect the people to that highway is very important as well. This wider feeder roads.
But we also need to accept there's a lot to do as well. I mean, you know, most of these things are inherited.
Limited,
yeah, definitely. So, thank you very much, Jacqueline. Ms. Aka, it was good to have you on the program. Well, viewers, we'll take a short break, and when we return, we'll be joined by officials of the Gambia Immigration Department to discuss, the recent interception of suspected irregular migrants. We'll take a break and we'll be back soon. Do stay tuned.
Q Money and Orange Money has just made money transfer easier. Now you can send money from Gambia to Senegal directly from your Q Money wallet. So what are you waiting for? Get your Q Money account now and start sending money to your friends and families through Orange Money in Senegal now. For more information, call our customer care on 133. Q Money, Sunu Kalpe. Terms and conditions apply.
Q-Money e Orange Money joni weɓini nuldugol mbuɗi mi yetoma joni hiɗa wawi nuldude mbuɗi iwra ko Gambia ɗo yaha Sénégal e Q-Money wallet ma on eyyi ko honno wonɗa e fadde mi yetoma udduto Q-Money account ma on joni fuɗɗoɗa nuldude mbuɗi e teriɓe ma rewa ɗon ka Orange Money nder Sénégal fi heɓugol hen ko laaɓi hiɗa wawi noddude Q-Money customer care e 133 Q-Money suñu kalpe ɗum no yaadi e sartaji. Q-Money anin Orange Money ye bulodi nyola pour ka kori kio sone yandi ka bonan Gambia banko kan kata Senegal banko kan anin Q-Money wallet e ka mune batu e muna fan Q-Money account wala sign pour ka dati ka kodoki e terimal anila dimbayal kana anin Orange Money Senegal ni lafta ku Senegal sotola je Q-Money customer care commandi 133 Q-Money suñu kalpe ning sartolle bala. Q-Money ak Orange Money ñoo lëkkaloo pour yombalal leen yónnee xaalis bàyyi ko Gambia dem ba Sénégal ak Q-Money wallet looy toog di xaar dawal léegi nga ubbi Q-Money account pour nga mun a door di yónnee xaalis sa xariteeg sa mbokka yi jaarale ko Orange Money Sénégal léegi pour am si lu leer mun ngaa call Q-Money customer care si 133 Q-Money suñu kalpe lii dafa ànd ak sarta yuñ tëral.
Mitoma. First time cross, really threatening, and it's dropped for Minte, rifled in! Out.
Did you know you can buy cash power using Q-Money wallet absolutely free up to 30,000 $? Use our app or dial 323# and select Q Power. Choose Register Meter. Enter your meter number. Dial *323# and follow these simple steps. Number 1, select option 3 for Q Power. Number 2, choose option 1 to buy any amount of Q Power. Enjoy free QCell airtime every time you cash in to purchase Q Power. For any inquiries, call 133. Q Money, Sunyu Kalbe.
Hello viewers, welcome back from the short break. You're watching QTV's This Morning program. My name is Aliou Cisse and I'm here with my colleague Jacqueline. Jacqueline, welcome back from the short break. We are now joined by officials from the Gambia Immigration Department. I have in the studio Sima Law, who is the Public Relations Officer of the Gambia Immigration Department. Mr. Law, good to have you in the program once again. And of course, we also have Inspector Lamin Jame from the Migration Management Unit. Mr. Jame, good to have you in the program.
Thank you.
Mr. Law, let me start with you. I mean, you have intercepted, a batch of young suspected irregular migrants. Could you bring us up to date how the interception was done?
Thank you very much, Mr. Cisse. It's an honor to be here again. I think your event is quite important for us to also unveil to the people out there the work we do at our level. Yeah. So on the 21st of November, we had a press briefing at Tangi to update the media with regards to our recent interceptions of certain irregular migrants. We had 3 cases that were conducted there. One of them was conducted somewhere around Faraba, Bantang, Bolong. That was done by the Gambian Navy, where they were able to intercept about 91 suspected migrants around that area. We also had a second case that was somewhere around Kartong, where we had 11 suspected migrants also intercepted. And the third case was at Bara, where we had a boat that was disrupted from being engaged into this particular route. So overall, we had 3 cases that were discussed in our last press briefing.
So how do you know that these are suspected irregular migrants? Do you just see them, entering a boat and you say, oh, they are irregular migrants? How do you, establish those facts in the first place?
Well, security deals with intelligence. Okay. We don't just assume that a particular person is going to back way or take an irregular route. Before we able to intercept any boat, we must have received intelligence about the particular case. And what we do when we receive those things is to first verify how tangible it is before we take actions. So all those that we had intercepted are irregular migrants that were supposed to be, they were on the route to engage in this particular route. So let's look at, for example, the case of what we had at Bara. We received intel from a police officer in Senegal who gave us the update that a particular boat was about to be used for the irregular route. And they were now using the Gambia as a transit point and also to get more people involved. So when we verified the facts, we knew that it was tangible enough and we had to intercept the boat. The same case occurred with the case of Faraba Bantang Bolong, because the Navy were also on the routine patrol around the Bolong. And when they came across the boat, they had to also intervene to confirm what exactly was the situation there. You don't see a local boat in the Gambia's waters, let's say around 12 a.m. at night. When you see certain issues like that, there is a signal to you that something is, an odd number is currently in that particular situation. So when we had made our investigation, we have learned that they are all suspected migrants because they had been there for a number of days trying to get more people to join their boat before they take this particular journey. So whatever we do at our level is based on reliable evidences of what we're doing.
Okay. Let me now bring in Mr. Jame here. You're coming from the Migration Management Unit. Tell us, what do you do as a management unit?
Basically, at the Migration Management Unit, we are responsible for managing issues like irregular migration and also other migration issues. Basically, what the interceptions and all this sort of relating to this regular migration is our responsibility. Our officers are stationed at, we have the Bara and Bara Border Patrol Unit. We also have Tangi, West Coast Region Patrol Unit. Those are responsible for gathering intelligence, and also if there is a case, if there is an instance of interception, they go around. But also after interceptions, obviously we have 2 sets of migrants within the this case. We will intercept irregular migrants, but within there are organizers that we are also very concerned of. Those that are organizing these trips, because these are the people, they are real perpetrators of whatever is happening. So we also do our investigation to also be able to identify who's an actual smuggler, or let's say the organizers of this, and who are just those that are only trying to use the service of these smugglers to go. So that's what we do. When this is established, some of these cases are taken to court, and also, when we have convictions and all those things. So also when we do our investigations and sort of, Gambians, migrants are, they are allowed to go back to their families, and also the non-Gambians are also, we facilitate their movement out of the country, or if they want to still stay in the country, we facilitate it together with their embassies in the Gambia. So that's basically what we do, and a lot more at the Migration Management Unit.
Yeah, I was about to ask what's in for them, those that you usually capture, that are the migrants and of course the captains of the boat. But you did mention that they've been taken to court. But what are the charges? What are the procedures?
Exactly.
Yeah, we have a challenge.
There's no law.
We have a challenge.
And right now you're working on bringing a bill to the parliament.
Thank you. So that's what we were. Thank you for that. So, that's the point where we, as law enforcement officers, we need laws to do our job. So, but currently with the smuggling case, we all know there is no law that is criminalizing smuggling. But what we do at our level, we don't just leave them to go scot-free. In the process of smuggling, they,
you can use other laws.
Yeah, they commit other crimes too. So during our investigation, we make sure we bring some of those elements to ensure that, at least to deter them from doing. So, but if the immigration bill is actually come into force to be an act, we are so most of these things will be a thing of the past. Exactly. But recently, this is our frustration as immigration department. But we are trying our level best to ensure that we do our job to protect the lives of people.
So you think once this law comes into place, like it will not totally eradicate, but at least in a certain level reduce the rate of the people using these boats for this irregular migration?
Obviously it will do a lot, and in fact I think there's a more reason why we are pushing it harder to ensure that this law is enacted as an act. So because if we didn't have any law to criminalize an activity, it will be very difficult. We will only be relying on the current Immigration Act, which is also not a criminal law. It is an administrative law, and also other laws to ensure that these perpetrators are booked, and
And you agree with me that the Gambia, we have very good laws. We have very good laws, but implementation is usually the problem.
So I would want to emphasize that laws are not just meant to punish lawbreakers. They're also supposed to have a deterrent to people who want to commit certain crimes. So when the laws are in place, you know very well that this is the offense. If I commit this particular crime, this is what awaits me if I'm convicted. It's going to deter you from taking part in this kind of activities. We might have very good laws, but again, we have to accept that we have very old-fashioned archaic laws in the Gambia as well. Take, for instance, our Immigration Act had been there since 1965. Okay? Our Refugee Act has been there since 2008. So our, let's say, for example, that of the issue of citizenship also had been there since 1977. So most of these laws had not been reviewed to at least meet up to our current status as a country. So while we may have those good laws, they were good when they were developed. But as of now, we have seen new trends rising up, and the laws must be able to meet up to those standards as well. So that is why we have to consider being able to have our bill approved by the Parliament and assented by the President too, so we can now be empowered as a security force to do our work in the rightful way.
Definitely.
I just want to come in here. I mean, you mentioned the interceptions made, Bara, Faraba, Bantang, and another place. Give us a breakdown of the demographic grouping, like the age, gender, and nationality. Are they all Gambians? And of course the age. What age group? Gender. Do we have women among those?
Yes, almost in most of our interception cases, we have a mixed gender. The last one we had at Faraba, we had 91 intercepted suspected migrants. And out of these, we had 12 of them were women, and the rest are all men. Okay? And again, we have 4 nationality groups that were involved in this particular case. We had 37 Senegalese and 34 Gambians. The rest we had a Malian, and the others were Guineans. So obviously, we also had some minors. We had about 11 minors.
Wow.
If you went to the footage that was taken by QTV, you will see very small boys and girls that were together with their moms. And they were supposed to also take part in this particular activity. So to us, it's not just about knowing how to control migration, but again, observing human rights as well. Because when it comes to migration, it should be at least based on consent. But you can know that those minors cannot consent that they're going to travel. So whatever ordeal they are going to face along the way is done to them, not because of their own will, but because of those adults who are able to put them in charge. So the demographics are actually very huge. We have not only seen Gambians taking this route, we have seen other nationals within the Gambia also using the Gambia as a way to also move as a transit point as well.
I would just like to know from you, Mr. Jame, you talk about the issue of conviction in the past. I mean, Could you share with us how many convictions you've registered in the past?
Well,
do you have an idea?
Yeah, for the last year, I
know, like you said, you are limited. The law doesn't empower you that much. So
yeah, in fact, does it? I cannot remember for that of last year, but for this year. So because of this problem that I just said, we've secured only 4 convictions, and we have about almost 35, almost 35 cases that are already there, but only 4 cases are convicts. So we have other cases going through the court right as we speak. So we are hoping that we will have more convictions when the actual immigration bill comes to play. But we are trying our level best to ensure that these perpetrators don't just go scot-free. That we cannot just let them go like that. Even we don't have the actual law that of smuggling, we can try other laws. So compared to last year, we have done great in terms of interceptions. So because you can see last year we did about, it was 29 interceptions in total. This year, up to, as we speak, we have about more than 37 interceptions. So we have seen an improvement in terms of doing our job, and you know, our officers around are doing really great.
You're right. Mr. Allo, I saw a headline on the Fatu Network 2 days ago that you vowed to prosecute 7 suspected perpetrators, including migrant boat captains, intercepted in Barra. And you're mentioning about the laws not being in place for you to be able to get these things done. How do you plan on going towards that? Because that's what you vowed, according to the headline.
I think it's important for us to also note that the law not being there does not mean we have to let every perpetrator go scot-free. He has just informed you that we had about 4 cases that had been convicted. Now imagine if we had just sat down and said there are no laws, let them just go scot-free. Today we wouldn't have gotten those 4 being convicted. So despite us having a challenge with the legalities, we still have to use other mechanisms to be able to put them into, to be charged. Let's say, for instance, in the Immigration Act, we have some offenses. And we know very well that, for instance, traveling without a valid document is an offense in immigration. Okay? Let alone trying to leave the Gambian borders without passing through our regular entry points as well. So we have many ways to maneuver and make sure we at least put you as a perpetrator of certain crimes. So those people that had been we realized in the recent case too, is the same situation. Among the 35 cases we have on the table that are still going to trial and other engagements, we're going to add these 7 cases. If we're able to find the required evidences to prove that those people are found to be to also be culprits as well. So we know there are challenges when it comes to legality, but we as GID also have to look for other avenues to make sure that people are deterred from taking part in this particular act of irregular migration as well.
Mr. Jame, I would just like to know from you, I mean, in this work that you do, have you noticed any patterns in irregular migration, I mean, trends, such as routes or methods that, you know, sometimes they ask, okay, they all know we use this route to go to Banjul, so let's now use another route. Or let's now, because we use this boat, let's use another method now. So
it has become very difficult to actually know which pattern these people are using. There's a lot of inconsistency now. Let's take for instance about the Farawa case. One could not even imagine.
They would use Faraba.
One could not imagine people taking Faraba Bolong to depart. So it was like most of the departure points that we realized is in let's say Bara around Nyomi, and also Bakau and the Tangi areas where actually the departure points that we were all focused on. But we have seen recently it has shifted. We have seen them departing from Katong, we have seen them departing from Faraba Bolong, and many other places. So the boarding relies on everybody to report. Like he said, as officers, we rely on intelligence. We cannot do this alone because we are not magicians to know when they are departing.
You can't be everywhere.
So and people actually know this is happening. There is no, in fact, they don't hide it in the communities. People just talk about this randomly as no man business.
I think it's something that people so feel so proud.
You can see.
But how do you engage communities to raise awareness for them to understand that this is risky and they should share information? Because this would they come from our communities, they come from our families. Sometimes we are aware that this, our sons and daughters are embarking on this journey.
Exactly. Yeah, so we have many activities that are currently ongoing at the level of the GID to engage the public. At the level of MMU, they also have been involved into community engagements, trying to make sure people are able to understand the work that is being done there and how they can also contribute towards reducing the risks of irregular migration. At the level of the PR unit too, we have what we call as the community engagement unit there. And our job is to make sure we devise programs and policies which we can use to engage the public. For instance, as of now, we have a weekly radio show on Star FM where we talk about migration issues and all things that deals with immigration work. Okay? As of now too, we have also developed a work plan for next year, and part of it includes us going to the garages, going to the villages, as far as everywhere in the country, to talk to people about how can they also complement the work of the GID. So we are resource constrained, as we may say, because we are funded by the government, let's say, for instance. But in most of these engagements we want to do sometimes require also funding and other resources. So while we underscore the importance of those activities, our challenges also becomes what resource mobilization. And as a result, sometimes we develop very good roadmaps, but it becomes hard for us to implement those kind of activities. But we're trying our best by using the TVs, using radios, and also meeting people in person to discuss on some of these challenges that we're also going through as a department.
Knowing how much of a tax it is to tackle this irregular migration as well, the Navy too is involved. So what's your working relationship with them? How are you guys working closely together to ensure that this battle is fought? The
security sectors in the Gambia have a very good rapport when it comes to work. At the level of migration, our biggest partners when it comes to the Gambian security force is the Navy. But again, we have other partners, like we talk about civil guard here. We also have COP Gambia as well, who have also been very supportive with regards to managing irregular migration. We've also had that cordial working connection with the Gambia Police Force as well, because for us to combat anything that deals with crime and other activities, we have to be able to do that interagency cooperation. So Navy had been very much cooperative. Their recent case shows you how well they are willing to also support our work at the department. Because once they made the interception, they had to contact our migration unit for us to now take over that particular case, because it is our mandate to deal with migration. So they know where their limit is, but at least how they can also support our work also has been observed. In our strategic plan at the level of GID, we also have a part that talk about how can we collaborate with other security forces. Navy being inclusive, Gov, police as well. So that rapport is actually very much smooth.
And I think it's important, instead of competing, you are complementing each other's efforts.
In fact, this is guided by an SOP that was developed in the year 2021. We developed an SOP called Standard Operating Procedures on Handling Smuggling of Migrant Cases. So because we understand that this is an organized crime, it's a transnational organized crime, there's a need for concerted efforts. No one can do it alone. We cannot stop it alone as immigration. So we developed this, and during the development of this SOP, all the stakeholders in migration, or let's say in smuggling of migrants, were involved, including Navy, police, SIS, and others. So actually everybody knows, every agency knows your responsibility, because Navy are usually at the sea. So obviously when they come across some of these things, they know this is not our case, but we have to refer. And we also use what we call the National Referral Mechanism. That's a document that was also developed by IOM through the support of IOM to know when to refer and how to refer. So because I know immigration, when we intercept, we need humanitarian support for the migrants. We don't do that. Red Cross will come into play to support, to give humanitarian support to the migrants. When there is a need for prosecutions, currently now we don't do prosecution. We work with police to do the actual prosecution. So these are some of the things that we are doing as a government level, but this is far beyond that. We need to use that whole of government approach, but we need to use also the whole of community approach to ensure that we curtail the menace of irregular migration.
Just like Ali mentioned,
it should be our responsibility of everybody.
So I mean, those intercepted non-Gambians, what do you do with them?
Even the SOP has that version, because these people are not criminals. By virtue of even entering into our country irregularly doesn't make you a criminal unless you commit another crime, because immigration laws are administrative laws. It's their administrative offenses. So what we do for them is like we give them choices. One, if you wish to stay in the Gambia, you must regularize your status to stay and integrate yourself into the society. If you wish to go back, we facilitate that through their embassies if you wish to go back to your country. Those are the non-Gambians who are not as perpetrators or suspected smugglers. They are only migrants. They don't commit. After all the necessary, things that we do at our level, we ask them, now do you want to go back to your country? No, I want to stay in the Gambia. And no, if you want to stay in the Gambia, you must follow procedures. Then we do that. So this is how we do. For the Gambians, we will, usually call their people and, engage them to say, this is something that we can avoid. You go back to your community because they are not criminals.
And Piero, how do you ensure that they are treated with respect and dignity when intercepted? I know some human rights activists who are watching will be asking what, their rights also must be protected.
Right.
How do you treat them?
GID's reform strategies includes respecting human rights. I mean, if you look at, in fact, our senior cadre, almost all those there, people who have at least served the UN in other mission strategies.
Like Mo,
even the deputy herself had served in these missions. So they know very well the repercussions of not observing human rights when it comes to these cases. I've not received so far any case since I became the PRO that deals with GID officers going to violate somebody's human rights. I've not received any. And that, if it was available too, the media would have been able to see those kind of activities. So we have made sure that we have a unit that deals with human rights and professionalism as well. So that is why if you go to Tangi, you realize that once they are intercepted, the first thing we do is we engage the Gambia Red Cross Society to come on board. Because some of them would be in very bad shapes and they need to be taken care of. So throughout their stay in Tangi, they're always there with the Red Cross Society. From their first day to their last day. They're given attention, they're given feeding, everything that they need is always given. We also have a challenge there because sometimes, let's say you have about 100 people in Tangi. And Tangi does not have the rooms or places where we can keep these intercepted migrants. So there, what we can do is we manage with what we have. We use our resources and provide them a place where they can lodge. But let's say, for instance, if we're able to get a place where they can stay, comfortably, that is going to be an advantage on what we're doing to at least respect their human rights. But it also becomes a challenge. Perhaps we're going to open up a call for support from the public out there, from philanthropists, that we want to make sure that they're given a very comfortable stay at Tangi, but we don't have the resources there. And that will require us to at least build up houses where they can stay for some time while we're doing our investigation as well. But human rights at the GID is to standards. We do not joke with that.
I mean, I quite appreciate, the fact that, you are collaborating with your sister forces in carrying out this work. I mean, one key challenge for immigration that I have established is the issue of mobility.
Sure.
I understand that is also affecting your work.
Yeah. Quite right. Our work is in different folds. And one of them is our routine patrols, going around villages, cities, and towns, trying to ask people to regularize their status in the Gambia. And that requires us to have mobility. If you look at KM alone, we have only 2 functional vehicles that have been used by GID for patrols.
Wow.
And imagine how diverse KM is. The hotspots you have within KM, Serekunda, you talk about Serekunda.
Yeah. Right.
Okay? So if we have that challenge when it comes to resources, it becomes a challenge for us. Governments expect us to serve to expectations. But then what we can do is make sure we try to use what we have at our level and provide that efficiency. But there is a need for us to be given all these issues. We all still have a challenge. Right now, even if you go to the assembly, we have a challenge with our budget. At some point, you tend to realize that we had made some allocation for vehicles to be provided to us. But if you look at recent cases, it has been removed. So this will show you that despite the good work we're doing, we have that challenge. And there needs to be that effort from the government, effort from the public out there to support the work of the GID.
And I hope the DG will be able to, justify your budget during the bilaterals with the security committee. But right now they're having their bilateral meetings with all these committees. I'm sure the committee is chaired by the deputy speaker, and I hope they will consider this request.
They should be, because if not, we're going to be constrained with our implementation strategies. And if GID is not able to work functionally, it is going to affect the Gambia Police first. It's going to affect GAF, it's going to affect the Gambian Navy. So we need to have that chance to be able to deliver to expectations so we can at least serve the Gambian population.
Well, Mr. Low and Mr. Jami, I understand we're running out of time, but just finally a quick one, PR, before you leave. I mean, just this morning we were discussing a story on the Standard newspaper regarding Spain seizing Gambian non-biometric passports over authenticity. We understand so the Belgian embassy in Dakar also following source.
Yes. Thank you very much. I have read the story before coming.
Yes, please,
I have to be on top of issues. So Gambian non-biometric passport, it's valid and authentic.
Okay.
Okay? It's a machine-readable passport.
Yeah.
It's authentic. It is to standards. Okay? The case of this issue is not about whether the passport is authentic.
Well, I was worried because I still have that.
It's not about the passport being authentic, but it is about people that possess the passport.
Yeah.
Let's say, for instance, Mrs. A is of, let's say, close to 45 years. And you have a passport that says you're 25 years. Okay? Human incentric values can sometimes question some of these issues. But our passport is to standards. Yes. So it's not about whether it is authentic or not, but then people that are holding it.
Oh, well,
so meaning if you don't have the biometric passport, the other one is still very, very authentic.
It's very authentic.
Okay.
It's very authentic.
Okay.
Usually we give out the MRP to people who are not in the Gambia. Okay. Let's say, for instance, we have seen many Gambians going through the irregular migration route. And most of them, when they're going, they have no documents with them. Now, it is our duty as immigration to make sure the Gambian population in abroad are also given their responsibilities and their duties as well. So now, if you want to regularize your status in Spain, for instance, you need to get a passport. So that guy in Spain cannot travel back without any documents to get a passport.
But so that even regular migrants who have traveled and, getting to renew their passport.
So we have to find an avenue where we can at least provide them with this passport. So some of them, they are able to get it through the embassy in Spain, but others have to get it through the Gambia here. You don't need to be here in person to get the passport. They can contact their parents or their family members. Then we get the required documents that we need to aside that they are Gambians, because before we process this, you have to first confirm to us you're a Gambian. So sometimes we request their ID card, their birth certificates, and at least a document that shows that you are living outside the country. So when these documents are all given, this all apart, then they're able to get the passport.
But what do you make of the season of the passports totally from Gambia?
The seasons as in?
They season these passports from the
Well, we have to respect other countries and their laws as well, okay? Season, it does not mean they are going to take it away from them totally. They might want to do certain investigations, and at the end they get to finalize what they're going to do. So we cannot dictate what Spain does at its own territory. But what we can do is at least engage them as a country and see how best we can control what is happening. That is why we have the Gambian embassy in Spain taking up responsibilities. Because that is their mandate. That is their job to at least engage the Spain authorities now to decide what they could do. So they're doing their best, and we hopeful that they're not going to find any but in our passport, because it is given to standards as well.
Yeah, but I know once they established that this is authentic, why should they seize the passport?
Well, they may also have other legal issues. Passports sometimes they're a bit sensitive in some occasions, very sensitive.
But maybe also it has to do with the person holding the passport as well. That could be the reason as well.
Perhaps he might be able to shed more light on that, because he also works as a document expert.
Well, Mr. Jami, could you just say in just a minute, because we're running out of time now.
I just like he said, this might not necessarily deal with the authenticity of the passport. The passport is genuine, but the person holding the passport. So I think what would have happened is, if they will put this into the Gambian consular or the Gambian embassies there. So once it is sent to immigration, we are obliged to do our own investigation and send it back to the country concerned. So I am not sure what this really is as of now, but I'm sure it will be sent back to immigration to do further, because when you have a problem with a passport, you are not the right authority to verify. So you have to send the passport back to the country, the issuing country, to authenticate it. It's our responsibility to say whether this passport is authentic or not.
Thank you so much, Seaman Law, Public Relations Officer, Gambia Immigration Department, and Inspector Lamin Jame of the Migration Management Unit. It was good to have you on the program, quite insightful. And Jacqueline, it was good to have you on the program as well.
And thank you very much, Mr. Low and Mr. Jame, and to our viewers as well. Until we come your way tomorrow, here's bye-bye from me.
Thank you very much, Jacqueline. Well, viewers, bye-bye. Join the team tomorrow. Goodbye.